Hi guys, welcome back to Meg After Dark. It is that time of the week again where we get to talk about the latest Fear the Walking Dead episode. We're talking about season 4, episode 2, Another Day in Diamond. Diamond, which we find out is the name of their little community that they've made. What did you guys think of this episode? FYI, I'm back in the car line again and my kid's on recess out there. So I'm trying not to like embarrass her by having her see that I'm filming in here. And I'm probably gonna have to turn the car on in a minute because it's a very warm day outside. But I don't have very much time, so I want to get through this. I really love this episode. I had one complaint, which I'll tell you about in a second, but all in all, like, I really enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy to finally get back to our main Fear characters, and I'm super interested to see what is happening here and what's gonna be happening and see more of like the backstory. And that leads me into my one complaint of the episode, and that was the lack of backstory or hint or really anything towards what happened immediately after the dam. That was really my big complaint, is that we have this huge time jump and we got nothing this episode except for a tiny flashback of Nick when he was detonating the dam, and that was nothing that we hadn't already seen. So, you know, we have this like obviously there's something huge happened with Nick to give him such serious PTSD that we saw in this episode. And also something pretty serious, I think, happened to Madison that's still affecting her quite a bit. Hence the lack of sleeping, the constant like building. I think that's kind of how she copes. It's her coping mechanism. And so I feel like really in this episode that there could have been like even just like a really brief glimpse or anything, even something that we didn't necessarily understand, some type of flashback towards the dam. Give me like a little bit something more than what we did see from Nick, because I think we crave that so much. You know, we had this huge dam explosion, everyone's been separated, and then we come back and we find out, you know, this episode opens on day 365. So they've been in this stadium for a year, a full year. So, and we already know that there is a huge amount of time before they even came to the stadium and built it up. So I think we're looking at kind of like around 2 years, I feel like, because it was supposed to catch up with present day Walking Dead. So obviously there's also some type of time which we don't know how much of a time gap there is between the before scenes and the now scenes. So we don't know how much time has gone by since then, since the beginning of the episode and then when it says now. So so there's a little bit of like fluctuating time thing here, and I wish that they'd given us a little bit more. That being said, if you start out the episode, you know, as like taking it as a fresh start, here is our group. We will eventually, hopefully, find out what led them to this place, how they got back together, because I think that's the biggest thing. Is it's so interesting to me how this group has been separated so many times and they still find their way back to each other. Obviously, we're still missing Daniel as well. So, you know, I feel like we're owed that explanation, and I'm hoping that they don't leave us hanging for too long, that we start getting more, because they just didn't give us anything this episode. So that was my complaint. Moving along. Oh my god, it's getting so hot in here already, you guys. We have this new stadium, this new place. It looks amazing. And it sounds like Madison, and I'm assuming they got all back together before they came to the stadium. That's kind of what it sounds like. I'm sure we'll find out more on that later on in this season, but it sounds like they all came to the stadium and they're the ones who built it up into what it is now, a year later, a thriving, what seems like a thriving community. And as Nick says, they're almost able to provide enough food on their own. They have the garden and everything, and they have enough stockpiles, they have weapons, they have hot showers, they have living spaces. Like, it seems like this really great place. And we find out that they have 48 people once Naomi gets there, living there. So it's a pretty good sized group. And it sounds like, you know, Madison's her people, them, Alicia, Nick, Strand, Luciana, that they're the ones who kind of bring people in. And this whole episode too, Madison really seems like on this mission to save people, to save anyone that she can, which is a little bit of a different Madison, as we know her from before. But it's mentioned a couple times, kind of how like she'll look under every rock. We won't be able to drag her back home until she's looked under every rock for this girl's family. Like clearly, there is some kind of issue there with Madison and this desperate need to save people. More about that in a second though. So they've built up like everything in the stadium in Diamond looks great. They've got food, they've got like everything, okay? So they're like thriving here, and we meet this little girl who appears to, oh, and we got to meet some other new characters. I think the guy's name was Cole, who is a potential new love interest for Strand. I liked him. They brought that up a couple times, kind of hinting at like the flirtatious, maybe future relationship. They were talking about Strand going on a date with him or just having coffee or something, you know. Strand is a little bit, more standoffish, it seems like, with it, although he is interested. So it's just kind of like, you know. We also see that older couple who kind of seem like they've been there for a while as well. They seem like, you know, the main people there as well with Madison in the group, that Madison takes their advice, you know, and that kind of thing. They discuss things together. I don't know what their names are. Knowing how Fear goes, they'll probably die at some point as well, so can't get too attached there. So I'm not super worried about learning their names at this point. And we meet this little girl, I think her name's Charlie, and it seems like she's come from, you know, something bad happened and she's not really willing to talk about it. Madison decides that she's gonna go out and do something they don't normally do, which is go out past the range of their walkie-talkies, of their radios, and look for this girl's family. So they all go out and they come to this little town and they split up and they find out two things, well, three things. One, they find Naomi, which Madison risks her life to save this woman that she has no idea who she is, and the girl just drew a gun on her. So Madison clearly, like, I feel like anybody else would have been like, get your keys back, or, you know, chase this girl off and like leave her alone because, you know, she's asking for it. But Madison tries to save this girl's life. Naomi seems like she's probably been through a lot. She's been on the move since the very beginning. She doesn't have anyone. And the fact that she was like crying when Madison was telling her about the group, and like she was just, you know, I think she was just terrified of like that confrontation or anything. Like that's just not who she is. So I'm really excited to learn more about her character. She's also a nurse, so that is always a plus in the zombie apocalypse. So she comes back with them. They also, the two other things they find out is that there's absolutely no walkers there, and there's absolutely no food, items, anything there. Even the light bulbs, they said, were gone. So that leads us into this group, this new group called the Vultures, which I don't know how, like, if you guys saw my reaction video, that was 100% not fake or anything. I literally called these guys Vultures based on how they were acting, and then later in the episode they were literally called the Vultures, and I could not believe that that was such a shock to me. But the name is very, very fitting for how they were acting. Before the Vultures show up at the stadium, we see how bad Nick's PTSD really is. So when they go out on this, you know, hunt to find Charlie's parents, we see that Nick stays behind. He has no desire to go out whatsoever. Then we see him start to get worried at night when they don't return, and he hears the music out there and he's just very freaked out. We see him decide impulsively to go out and try and, you know, see where his family is. Immediately, once he gets out there in the truck, he starts having like a full-on panic attack, I think. His PTSD sets in and he is just like, he can't function. He ends up running the truck into like a pole, crashes it, walkers are surrounding him, and he's just like, the look in his eyes, he's just totally dazed and out of it, can't function, and he's helpless out there. I think the guy's name is Cole. Tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what it sounded like. He shoots the walkers that are there, and then Luciana just happens to pull up right at the you know, perfect timing and gets him. Later that night, we see that these vultures show up, and they're a very weird group. And we find out, like, the big plot twist is that this little girl who Madison was trying desperately to help was actually a spy. Was actually feeding them all that information. And I have to admit, there was a split second where we saw the little girl with the radio and how she was like messing with it. And in the back of my head, just a very like fleeting thought, I was like, oh, shady, you know, like suspicious. Then I didn't like really think anything else of it until he called the girl out, the vulture guy, what's his name, Mel, called the girl out, and I was like, you clearly can't trust kids in the zombie apocalypse. Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. She fed all the information, made me so mad. But come to find out that this little girl is not even like a family member to any of these. Like, I don't know if they found her or maybe they killed her family. But they're taking care of her, but she's not related to any of them. So it is also kind of like, oh, you just grabbed this girl and are like using her as a spy. Like, very weird. I think that there might be a chance that this girl might flip sides, especially after Luciana was so sweet, and even having the girl be a traitor, she still went and there's a yellow jacket trying to get in the car right now. He's trying so hard to get in the car. Oh my God. Luciana's kindness that she showed by putting the book outside the trailer for the girl. I honestly think that that might be like some kind of, like this girl might actually switch sides here eventually then and help them somehow. I'm not really sure how, but that would be really awesome if she did. A little bit of redemption for this girl. But these vultures have a very interesting concept, you guys. So they're not like aggressive in the fact that they're not like coming in, storming the stadium, shooting everyone, killing everyone. Like, they're these very patient people that are just like, let's just like set up shop outside of the stadium and wait for either everything to just like implode inside or for them to get so tired of us sitting out here that they just give us all their stuff. Hang on, I've got to turn the car on real fast because I am super hot. Woo! And you know what happens when I turn the car on? This camera starts shaking, you guys, with the AC. So I apologize in advance, but it is very hot out. So they have this interesting way of how they do things, and they basically sit outside of encampments and like wait for, I don't know, wait for shit to go down or something. And they're just waiting. And so I feel like they must have something up their sleeve to have this be successful every single time, because I can't imagine every group that they've come across hasn't like been violent towards them or something. But I didn't see any weapons. Did you? I've only watched it once, so I might need to look again just to be sure, but they didn't seem like the type to strike first. And I imagine that Madison's group would be afraid to leave the place to go scavenging anywhere, for fear that these people would swoop in, you know, and take all their stuff or, you know, whatever, while they were gone. And so we see that Nick's problem with the, what is it, weevils eating the turnips, is also eating all of the other vegetables and things that they're growing there. So now they have no crops, and I imagine that eventually their food will dwindle. I am so curious to know how long these people are going to sit out there and wait. They seem very patient, just like vultures, just waiting for their opportunity. We know that they're also collecting the walkers, so I'm wondering what they're gonna do with them. Maybe they use them against, I can tell this camera's shaking. My car is like, does not like to idle and have the AC on. I don't have very much more time, you guys. Okay, so I'm interested to see how long this standoff goes on for. Obviously something eventually happens because we get to the now scenes at the end, and we don't know how much time has passed. But we see Strand, Alicia, and Luciana and Nick. Nick is out, so clearly something has happened to make him feel better about going out. Who knows how much time has passed, and they meet up with Morgan and Althea and John, who are then gonna take them to the place where they found the numbered flag. So I honestly feel like Alicia and them are hunting down these vultures. So I'm wondering if something horrible happened at the stadium. Maybe these guys are the only survivors. Maybe I don't know. There is a huge theory going around though that Madison, I don't believe this is a spoiler. I believe that this is just fan theory, that Madison has actually died at some point in between here, and we don't find out that shocking, you know, that shocker until the end of the first half of the season. So that'd be interesting. I would hate that. I think it would ruin the show, to be honest, if they killed off Madison. So I honestly don't think that's where they're going at all. But I have seen so many people talk about that I pretty much had to bring it up. I really don't see that happening though. It's just, I don't know. But I will say that when Madison rose out of like the oil tank thing, whatever that was, I thought for a second, she looked like a walker too. I thought for a second, like, why was she hovering in there for so long? Did she get bit? I don't know. But there is definitely something more to Madison than we've seen before. Okay, I feel like I touched on everything I wanted to touch on. All in all, it was a great episode. I'm so excited to see what happens next week as well. I'm kind of hoping that we really get more backstory before the dam. Where's Daniel? I miss Taka as well, and what was Taka's buddy's name? Can never remember. I miss them. Like, it's upsetting to me that they're not all here. I feel like we go through characters in Fear so quickly, we start liking them and then they're just gone. So I don't know, we'll see what happens, but I'm very excited for next week. This looks like it's gonna be a great season, and I'm just hoping to get more flashbacks to the immediate right after the dam. That would make me the happiest, I think. I just need to know more. Okay, you guys, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode in the comments, and I will see you next week for Sunday's reaction video. Hope you guys have a great day. Bye.